So, welcome to the inaugural breakfast for Optimism Australia. A couple of announcements, statutory announcements. The restrooms are at the end of the corridor, and the same are for the fire exits, which we hope we don't have to use, being so high up. And can I introduce my fellow panellists today? Stephanie Roberts-Victory, Valerie Keynes, and Mr. Wes Pickering. Thank you very much. It's a good start. Yes. There we are. My name is Ken Wood, and I am the founder of Optimism Australia, and I welcome you today and thank you for your support. We had hoped to have Mary Poppins with us today. A few of you have requested her, but unfortunately she's off doing other things. We had the opportunity to have Meatloaf here, but I understand that he is practicing for the grand final. He's coming back. But enough of this mirth. This is about perspective. I'm going to talk to you about perspective this morning, and I think I owe you an explanation why you're here. About a year ago, I was visiting a client. I act as a interventionist, a business interventionist. And the normal question is, what does an interventionist do? Well, I am invited into companies and situations looking for a better outcome. It's as simple as that. It sounds fancy, but I'm looking for a better outcome for the parties. And I travelled to a company in the northern suburbs who I've been assisting, and this is what I found. Let's call this gentleman Trevor. It's not his name. But Trevor runs an engineering company with about 50 employees, and I was distressed to find him in this state. He ushered me in, and then he gave me both barrels, telling me that he was tired of employee expectations, he was tired of Fair Work Australia, he was tired of all the regulations that he had to adhere to. He was tired of the high dollar, which was crippling his business. He took a second breath and then went on to say that the GFC had robbed him of three things: respect, relationship, and trust. And this guy was in a bad way. He was really struggling. So I made the strategic decision that it was a waste of time me going to talk to him. So we agreed that I would come back in the following week and go through some of his claims. On my way back to the office, I started to dissect what he was saying. And he was right. We have gone through a lot of change. And a lot of people have had difficulty in managing that change, some better than others. I know there's a business in this room who did a change program for over 2,000 people, or maybe more, and did it very effectively. But the ordinary individual in our society is having real problems in coming to terms with the speed and the nature of change. It's here today, gone tomorrow. I was reading recently about the United States electricity meter readers. Last year there was 56,000. This year there's 21,000. Whole industries are disappearing, jobs are disappearing. But on the other hand, new jobs are coming, but we tend to focus on the more difficulty. So we are going through some very, very tough times. We are seeing things like retail struggling. We are seeing like manufacturing, doing it really tough. The dollar, which is you know, we shouldn't forget that the dollar is a measure of our success. Years ago, when I came here, 31 years ago, the dollar was one of those currencies which went up and down because it was a speculative currency. Now central banks are placing their money with us because we're a stable economy. So it's a two-sided coin, and who knows what the answer is. Here in Adelaide, I've been here about 12 years, and I think Adelaide is a piece of heaven. And I encourage more people to talk about how good Adelaide is, because I've lived in a number of countries, travelled to 31 countries, and it is a piece of paradise. But we don't do it justice. We struggle with change in Adelaide. And I'm reminded of a story about 6 or 7 years ago when Cricket Australia were pressing the SACA to upgrade its facilities. And here we have the wonderful scoreboard, which was 100 years old in November. So SACA took their case to the council, and there were some objections. Now, I can't mention the lady's name, the councillor. I got a feeling that you might know who that is. But she was reputedly to have said the following: why do they need a video screen when they're already at the cricket? That's Adelaide thinking. It has been. We're still talking about the curvature of a footbridge over the Torrens. We need to transition the past. We need to keep the things that are dear to us. And there are many things that are dear to us in Adelaide. But we've got to move on, and we've got to be proud. And that's down to everyone. If you look at our position as we stand in the world today, how are we fixed? How do we look? Well, did you know that Australia has just been voted the second most livable country in the world? Does anyone know who the most livable?
Sweden?
Fourth.
Canada?
No.
Denmark?
No. Switzerland. Switzerland, Australia, Norway, and Denmark, and Sweden. You must be doing something right. We have a democracy. If there's anything in the last couple of years that spurred me on to do this sort of thing, it's this young lady, which we all know as the girl who was shot. It might sound a bit cheesy, but we do have a democracy. We have stability. Here's our position currently with our trading partners. Now, people could argue that, you know, this is a moment in time. We are doing better than a lot of countries, and yet we hit ourselves over the head that, you know, the world is going to crumble. We have, and again, we have one of the lowest debt ratios to GDP in the world. And it's quite, the differences are quite stark. But still, this negativity that we have taken on abounds. One of the proudest moments, I've been an Australian now for 20 years. And a couple of years ago, or 5 or 6 years ago, there was a hurricane in New Orleans. And not only was it a disaster for the people, it was a disaster for the country, because the way that they handled it was disgusting. George Bush took 3 days to go there. The governor was sacked. Compare that with what happened to Brisbane in 2 years ago. No one told those people to come out on that Saturday morning with their brooms and buckets and front line loaders. No one marshalled them. It's a part of Australian, it's part of our DNA. It's resilience. Threadboard, Darwin, bushfires, we're very good at that. But a few weeks ago, we celebrated Australia Day. And I, like most of you, would have had a few beers or a glass of wine and family and friends. And it's a great day. The following day, we go back to our bleating and whinging. And I can tell you, I travel a lot. And Australia, unfortunately, is getting a reputation for whinging. Now, that's coming from an ex-pom, of course, you know, but I see it in my travels. You know, people say, why are you complaining? But we do. It seems to be a natural reaction for us. So can someone tell me why we have adopted this overcoat of pessimism? Can somebody give me an answer?
The media.
Okay, we'll come to that. We'll come to that. Anyone else? Anyone else? Could be. Good. The media. Wow. We've all got views on the media. In July last year, the price of iron ore on the spot market went down to $83 a tonne. And the pundits and the media said to us, man the lifeboats, take the money out of the bank, run for the hills. I checked the spot price this morning, and it's $159.80 a tonne. What happened? Why did this hurricane tsunami not happen? Anybody watch Insiders on a Sunday morning? Alan Kohler, who's just made a lot of money, by the way, just sold his business for 30 million, comes on and says, grave news, the stock market has gone down 24 billion this week. God, man the lifeboats, it's time. The following week, and I swear to you this is true, Alan Kohler comes on and says, the stock market's gone up 24 billion this week. And the darker side of that is that there are people watching this and their investment decisions about their bills and how they live their lives. And it is quite disconcerting. I have some therapy for this. I go to Sydney almost every month, hire a car, and when I get into the car, I switch on 2GB. Who knows 2GB? The famous stable of Alan Jones. Can't listen to Alan Jones. But I do listen to Ray Hadley. Now, Ray Hadley is a very famous NRL football caller. I think he called the swimming in the Olympics, and he's a shock jock. So I listen to him for 10 minutes, then I switch it off. And I do this. Because I know my life can't be as bad as Ray Hadley tells me it is. But, you know, there are millions of people who get sucked into this. This is a stable product for them. So we've got to be careful with the media. It is one of the reasons why we have so much debate. But the problem is, it's opinion. It's not fact. Lots of opinion. What are the opportunities? There are many, many opportunities for us. Now, look to your table, and what will you find? There's an item there on the table. Could you hold it up, please? Could you hold up the onion? Could you hold up the onion? Yeah. What a strange thing to do, you might say. Let me tell you, 8 weeks ago, in India, there were riots, and not the unfortunate death of that young lady. Why were there riots? Because there was a shortage of red onion. The red onion is a staple ingredient for most of their cooking. there were riots, there were shortages, price rises. Put your onion down now. At the same time, the Singaporean government was leading a mission to find if they could have joint ventures to build pig farms. Going around the region, they wanted, because they had problems with food security. And this is very, very similar to a lot of countries in Asia. The Chinese have been struggling with grain forever. They can't get enough of grain. They can't get enough of our coal, although it is probably not politically correct. They placed a limit on the import of coal to 40 billion tonnes. They've just exceeded that to 40.1. They're now saying to 2015 that they may reach it. Now, we have a lot of coal, as you know. They are just a snapshot of our opportunities. The opportunities we have in technical design, it won't be cars, it won't be steel, and that's the transition that we have to make. Education, we have people in the room with education. Although we decry our education systems, we have one of the best in the world. Let's look at China. China has a middle class of 300 million. Now, a middle class is determined by someone that spends $2 US to 20. It's not a lot of money. In 7 years, China will double that. Not 70 years, 7 years. It's not very long. Who is going to supply China with those services? And China is just one of those companies, one of those countries. There are many more. We do have a problem, and the problem is that we feel very, very uneasy about dealing with China. But this is the Asian century. The Europeans and the Americans could take 3 to 5 years. UK yesterday lost its AAA rating, and it's one of the better ones. How do we create optimism? Last week in this town we had Dr. Martin Seligman, quite an authority on optimism. Do you think he's going to solve it? Do you think Ken Wood, who started this initiative, do you think he's going to do it on his own? No. It's down to every person in this room, in your sphere of influence, whether it's your partner, whether it is your children, your work colleagues, or your communities. It's simple, but it's a tough gig. It's a very, very tough gig, but we can do it. And that's the reason that I believe that we've now got to start doing things. One of the pleasing aspects of this initiative has been the interest from people. Younger people also wanting to see a better vision. Our job, you know, I'm at the wrong end of the scale, we have to engage because there's a lot of talent. For all of these things that we say about the younger generation, there's a lot of talent. They're different. They are different, but if we don't engage, we will be the losers. But we have great opportunity. It's going to be ripples. It's going to be things, initiatives in schools, and I know my wife works in a school. And it's going to be initiatives in your workplaces. And it's about keeping a morale. You know, I've worked in places where the morale, it's been amazing to see directors come in the morning, slam their door, and go on with their daily work. You think that has implications? Too sure. Absolutely. How do you talk to your children? You know, do you have a positive message for your children? You know, they get on your nerves. I've got two big gorillas at home, and you know, they are their own people. But when you listen to them and talk to them about things, they have a contribution. Everybody has a contribution to this issue. Thank you very much. And if you've got any questions, I'll be happy to field them. Questions?
What is the initiative Ken doing in the near future?
Well, there has been a great deal of interest from individuals. We're going to hold an event in the evening. This event I went to with Dr. Sullivan last week had 1,000 people. And there is, I think people are tired. They're tired of feeling down. They're tired of going through the same old thing in their office where you have a naysayer. Who's ever worked with a naysayer? Yeah? Yeah? You know what a naysayer is? You know, their glass is not half full. They've never had a glass. Those people, you've got to make a determination of how you want to be treated. And there's nothing more depressing than having someone that you work. We've all done it. We've all worked alongside those people. But in answer to your question, the next event will be probably a mass audience with several hundred. And then I'm currently talking to a range of companies about what we can do within our companies, in our schools. It's early days, but we have to start somewhere. It really is. Any more views on?
What's your view on our, the last couple of decades, our need for materialism and wealth and that impact on our optimism?
Great question. I think it has had a huge impact. We have diverted our attention from the things that matter. And the things that matter in my book are people. Sounds cheesy, but people get the job done. You talk about communities, you talk about that event in Brisbane. Nobody tells them to do that. It's latent in Australia. It's here. We've just forgotten some of the principles. So materialism has definitely had an effect. We all like our nice houses and cars and beach shacks and mobile phones, but we've lost some of that connection. We've lost connection in communities. I know the schools, the schools get a hammering, but the schools are trying to do this, trying to instill this into kids. So it's a very valid question.
What are some of the initiatives you'd like to see in workplaces or some that you've observed that you feel have been positive?
Simple things. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's creating a morale which makes going to work pleasant. No one likes to go to work, and hear, depressing news from the boss or from your colleagues. Simple things. I'm not coming to you with a matrix of measures, because people just want simple answers. I think from my observations in my intervention work that people just want to be cared for, they want people to listen, and they want some sort of direction. One of the sad things of the last 12 months has been political leadership, both at a federal level and a domestic level. We criticise our politicians, but we have always had a degree of respect. I think we've lost that. And that affects workplaces and it affects people's psyche. And one would hope in the next 12 months we'd get a better brand of behaviour from all sides, because at the moment it's disgusting.
Is belief in yourself a key component of leadership?
Absolutely. But not everyone has it. Not everyone has it, nor should we expect it. More chiefs than Indians. If you have that leadership in whatever position you're at, it's your duty to pass that on. But there's a lot of people out there who are hurting. I see them all the time, you know, really down in the dumps. So if you're in a position to change that, you need to do it. But people have lost confidence. I can give you lots and lots of examples. As a postscript to Trevor. Trevor is still he's very grumpy, still. But today, that gentleman is spending 1.5 days teaching engineering at TAFE. He had to look up. To get optimism, you've got to be realistic. You've got to look up above the parapet. Trevor's done that. He still complains, but that's fine. You know, we all have days. But it is possible. You can turn the situation around. Okay? Thank you very much. Breakfast will now be served.